The United States looks united, but it isn't. Sure, 50 states appear stitched together by clean lines on a map. But step off the highway or cross a county line, and you'll notice it instantly. This isn't one country. It's many. Invisible borders split Americans by culture, religion, race, economy, even language, and they're far more powerful than any official state boundary. These aren't just regional quirks, they're fault lines shaping national elections, fueling culture wars, and defining what it means to be American. They're political conveniences. The real borders, the ones that matter to how people think, vote, speak, and live, are hidden in plain sight. Cross from Pennsylvania into West Virginia, and it's not just the roads that change, it's the accents, the politics, the stores, the churches, and even the radio stations. Drive from San Francisco into the Central Valley and you'll witness an abrupt shift from liberal tech utopia to conservative agricultural heartland in less than 100 miles. This isn't coincidence. This is the real geography of the United States, an invisible map of cultural, economic, religious, and ideological regions that shape the country far more than state lines ever could. Let's take a journey through the hidden borders inside the United States, and discover how geography divides a nation that was supposed to be united. Start with the Bible Belt. It stretches from Texas to the Carolinas, cutting across the Deep South. But this isn't a formal region, there's no official designation. Instead, it's defined by religious intensity, higher church attendance, evangelical traditions, conservative social values. Here, faith isn't just private belief, it's a central organizing force in culture and politics. Then there's the Rust Belt, a vast sweep of the Midwest and Northeast, once the industrial heartland of America. Detroit, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, cities that powered the 20th century with steel, cars, and coal. Today, many of these cities bear the scars of deindustrialization, population decline, and economic stagnation. It's a region bound not by states, but by a shared economic history, and by the cultural memory of lost manufacturing glory. Move west and you find the Sun Belt, a booming band from Florida to Southern California. Once a post-war backwater, it's now a zone of sprawling suburbs, economic growth, and shifting demographics. It includes everything from Phoenix's real estate boom to Houston's energy empire to Miami's Latin American influence. The Sun Belt isn't one culture, but it is one trend: growth, immigration, heat, and political transformation. What do you think is the most important, invisible border in the US? Cultural, economic, political? Drop a comment below. We want to hear your take. Now let's zoom in further. Because even within these massive belts and zones, smaller fault lines divide Americans. Urban versus rural. This is one of the most powerful hidden borders in the US. Forget red states and blue states. The real divide is cities versus countryside. Urban areas lean liberal, multicultural, and globalized. Rural areas lean conservative, traditional, and nationalistic. The divide isn't just political, it's economic, social, and psychological. Cities are centers of education, innovation, and immigration. Rural areas are centers of agriculture, resource extraction, and tight-knit community life. One depends on diversity and density. The other depends on continuity and land. These aren't just lifestyle differences, they're worldview differences. And in recent decades, they've become one of the most explosive divides in America. Another invisible border: race and segregation. Despite decades of civil rights progress, the US remains deeply segregated, not just by neighborhood, but by region. The Black Belt, a region running through the Deep South, reflects a concentration of African American populations, rooted in the legacy of slavery, sharecropping, and Jim Crow. Meanwhile, Latino populations cluster heavily in the Southwest, and Asian American populations are most concentrated on the West Coast. Native American nations are spread across the plains, Southwest, and Alaska. Each of these regions has its own history, trauma, and identity, often clashing with national narratives. But let's not forget economic borders. America has zones of wealth and zones of poverty that defy state lines. Silicon Valley and Appalachia are in the same country, but they may as well be on different planets. Incomes, job opportunities, health outcomes, and education levels vary drastically. Tech corridors like the Bay Area, Seattle, and Boston are driving global innovation and gentrification. Meanwhile, former coal towns, inner cities, and rural counties often face shrinking populations, opioid addiction, and failing infrastructure. And then there's climate geography, a hidden border that's growing more urgent by the year. Rising sea levels threaten the coasts. Drought plagues the Southwest. Wildfires devastate California. Hurricanes batter the Gulf. Climate isn't just weather, it's creating new economic divides, migration patterns, and insurance deserts. The linguistic border is another curiosity. Americans all speak English, but accents, vocabulary, and expressions vary widely. Y'all versus you guys. Soda versus pop, highway versus freeway. Even within the same state, these differences mark identity and community. Some researchers break the US into 11 cultural nations, like Colin Woodard's famous model, which includes Yankeedom, Dixie, the Midlands, and El Norte. Each has its own founding ideology and continues to influence voting patterns, laws, and education systems. Why does all this matter? Because these hidden borders explain why America often feels like it's at war with itself. When you understand the invisible geography, you see why compromise is so difficult, why political maps look like checkerboards, and why federal solutions rarely fit all. The Constitution created a federal republic. But geography created a fragmented society. And as technology flattens some differences, it deepens others. Social media connects Americans, but often only within their ideological tribe. Algorithms reinforce borders that cartographers never drew. So what happens now? Some argue these divisions are tearing the country apart. Secessionist movements, from Texas to California to Cascadia, dream of independence based on regional identity. Others see hope in hybrid zones, where different cultures mix and new American identities emerge. Education, mobility, and shared challenges like climate change could help bridge the gaps. But only if leaders recognize the real geography of the US, not the one on the map, but the one on the ground. Have you ever crossed one of these invisible borders and felt the culture shift? Tell us in the comments. And if you love exploring how geography shapes power, identity, and history, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives every week. Thanks for watching.